it's also due to recent development. One is COVID pandemic, which has led to high cost of living, high cost of fuel, there's high inflation. It's currently at 7.9%, even way above the bridge set by the CBK, and high public debt and runaway corruption. So definitely, if you look at all the four manifestos, you'll realize that there are some impressive commitments cutting across. If you look at the Roots Party, there's this controversial legalization of cannabis. And also, you'll see that the Roots Party is looking outward, not inward.
All right. We'll get into those discussions in just a bit, but let me bring in Dr. Baraza on this. Dr. Baraza, what do you expect these candidates to discuss tonight that is of utmost importance?
I think I expect them not to come here and electioneer, but talk about real issues. And these real issues include the high cost of living. I think they should be able to tell us and tell Kenyans what they are going to do about the runaway cost of living. Unemployment is a major issue. I come from the academia. We are churning out youth from the universities. They are coming out of colleges and they are going nowhere. They have no jobs. And we don't want a future of all our youth jobless. So I expect that they address that issue, and in a very serious manner. Issues of health. I hear money being allocated to the Ministry of Health, but I don't think Kenyans are getting the services optimally. So I would want to hear how they intend to do this, but of utmost importance is the issue of integrity, as Wanjiru has said, and corruption. Corruption, which is a cancer, it is killing us, it is killing this country. I want them to address, or I expect them to address the issue of corruption. And Kenyans are expecting that they get candid responses on how they intend to tackle corruption. All right. Nerima, as a representative of the youth, what is of utmost importance to you?
Hi, Trevor. I think everything has already been said by my co-panelists, and I agree with them completely. The fact that opportunities is going to be very high on the agenda, and how you're going to create those opportunities for young people, but not opportunities where you say we're providing a fund. We're very well aware that not all young people want to start enterprises and businesses. Opportunities within agriculture, food security. We are still undergoing a drought, so taking care of the population that is not normally seen as being Kenyan. They're second-class citizens, and that's how they feel, and it's an issue in our country. A lot of youth are in criminal gangs, talking about Mombasa County and even the northern frontier counties as well, and we tend to ignore these communities because a lot of times when we talked about the division of revenue, that's where a huge chunk of the debate came out from, where counties are concerned about collection of resources. So even when we talk about opportunities, we need to be talking about debt. Our debt is just too high, and it's going to fall on the youth to pay that debt. And how are they going to collect resources for that debt? Because as much as we talk about corruption, we need to do something about it. It just definitely needs to reduce. This is also a political season where too much resources has been used in campaigns. My friends, too much. I think it's the highest I've ever seen, ever. And I'm not old, but it's a lot. Looking at, statistics. And so that means that whoever is coming into power has to figure out, one, to recuperate. Number two, they're going to have officials or frontiers who are within parliament who their first thing will be thinking, how I'm going to recuperate financially. And then number three, it's going to be about how we're going to be able to sustain ourselves. even when we talk about the high cost of living and the impact that COVID has made. So I would say opportunities, looking at corruption, our debt and resources, how are we going to be able to manage them? Inclusivity, how are we going to also engage communities that are not normally seen as people who are at the forefront of these conversations that are normally overtaken by the majority.
All right. Prof, I'll come to you to get your expectations in just a bit, but let's cross over to Busara Naman, who's standing by the registration center to tell us what's going on. Busara, kwako Busara.
Na mtazamaji, kwa sasa nipo katika upande mwingine wa Chuo Kikuu cha Katoliki cha Afrika Mashariki, na bila shaka hapa ndipo unapoingia pa kwanza kabla hujafika kwenye jumba kuu ambapo mdahalo unafanyika. Na bila shaka sehemu hii ni sehemu ambapo usajili unafanyika. Na je, kwa nini usajili huu unafanyika? Kuna umuhimu gani? Basi nitakuwa naungana na mkuu wa usajili katika eneo hili ambaye ni Michael Duya, atujuze mengi zaidi kuhusiana na mchakato mzima. Karibia hapa kidogo. Hujambo na pengine siku yako inaendelea vipi?
Si jambo, siku yangu iko salama.
Na moja kwa moja labda tutuelezee kwa nini Mkenya yoyote ambaye anaingia katika chuo hiki hivi sasa katika mdahalo, je, kwa nini anahitaji kujisajili?
Watu wanakuja kwa sababu ya security reason, tunawasajili kwa sababu ya security. Kila wakati wakija, tunafaa kujua ni nani anakuja ku attend hii debate. So pale kwa online tulikuwa na form zenye tulikuwa make for attendees. So wakisha do the registration, tunajua kwamba wanakuja ku attend debate for a specific reason. Tulikuwa tunauliza kwa nini wanakuja ku attend the debate. So inatusaidia pia ku enhance security na kujua ni kina nani wameattend hii debate. Yes.
Na je, ni vitu gani ambavyo vipo katika hiyo mchakato wa online ambao unafuatilia? Ni mambo gani ambayo yapo ambayo mtu anapaswa kujaza?
Pale online tunaweza kujaza bio details. The same time tunajaza vitu kama photo. Lazima upload photo yako ili tujue wewe ni nani. Tukiangalia na pia tunakuangalia, tunajua kumbe ni wewe ndio umekuja na pia umesajiliwa the correct way. Tunachukua pia kategori yako. Tunajua kama wewe ni delegate tunakuja ama wewe ni crew. Tunafanyia kitu inaitwa accreditation pia, so that tujue ukikuja unakuja under which media house na unakuja kufanya nini katika hii debate. Yes.
Kwa hivyo inamaanisha kwamba wote waliokuja hapa ni waalikwa ambao tayari walijisajili awali.
Yes.
Naam.
Yes, ukikuja ni lazima ukuli alikwa. Kuna list ya wale tulikuwa tumewatumia invitation. So wakishahakikisha kwamba ni the correct people wanakuja, ndipo tunaweza wapatia sasa entry into the event.
Naam, shukrani sana Michael Duya. Bila shaka mtazamaji, huyo ndo mkuu wa kitengo cha usajili katika hafla nzima ya mdahalo huu wa wagombea urais. Na mtazamaji, kufikia hapo narudisha upande mwingine wa studio.
Asante sana Busara Naman. Just for clarity purposes, this broadcast is coming to you live from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Only those who are invited prior will be allowed into the vicinity, but we're not leaving you out. Online, you can always send us your views on presidential debates KE 2022 as a hashtag, and the deputy presidential debates KE 2022. Also, you can send in an SMS with your name and where you're texting us from to 22843 to weigh into the entire discussion. We'll sample some of the views during this broadcast that is being aired across all media platforms. Professor, I was coming to you in terms of your expectations for this.
Before you went to a commercial break.
Just trying to clarify to the people how the registration is working out there, so that they don't walk in here. But what are your expectations for this debate, Prof?
Yeah, thanks. And again, I think I appreciate being in the company of these heavyweights of ladies here. I think it's the same we expect in the debates. Yeah. There'll be only one gentleman, I suppose.
Yes.
And 3 ladies. I think the first thing is for them to appreciate and realize the position they are holding. You are holding the second person entrusted with the responsibilities by Kenyans. And therefore what we expect you is to talk at that level. In the sense that, how am I going to look at a country like Kenya and place it where it's supposed to be in the world, in Africa? Could be the first economy in Africa, if not the second, you know.
Yeah.
I expect that from them. And as my sister talked about here, perhaps it's not a politicking. This is a very different discussion, because here they will be asked questions. When they get to the rural areas, nobody asks them a question. You are talking to the people.
Yeah.
Here we are debating. And therefore I would like them to go beyond what we are promising Kenyans.
Yeah.
Hope is not a strategy and will never be a strategy. Tell us, for example, we are going to have free education from ECD to the university. How? Anybody can say that.
Yeah.
Even the mad person in the street. But how are we going to do it? So what I expect, and I think the panelists here have brought the issues here.
Yeah.
If you look at the public debt, if you look at the fuel prices, how are we going to deal with it? That is something I would expect from them.
Yeah.
A very clear strategy. In fact, you move from hope to a strategy. And from a strategy, you have the implementation.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really expecting from them.
Okay.
Because the moment you tell the Kenyans, we have issues of food.
Yeah.
What makes us go back? Farming, agriculture. What makes agriculture tick? Water.
Yeah.
What is my plan to deal with harvesting water?
Okay.
What equals manufacturers? Energy. How are we going to deal with the energy?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that are going on. I think Ebre, that brought the drought, the public debt, post-COVID, the war in Ukraine. And of course, I think, I would not like to to say like Wanjiru there. I know Wanjiru hits below the belt of the times he has opportunity. And I think everybody has, we are looking for strong leadership.
Yeah.
A leadership which is no-nonsense, in the sense that it will not allow things like some transaction cost.
Yeah.
That's what I really we are looking for.
All right. And Dr. Baraza, Professor Gituri is raising a very interesting aspect on position. The position they serve as the deputy president of the nation, the incoming one. The constitution itself, Article 147(2), is not even explicit on the roles of a deputy president. It simply just says he or she will deputize the president and execute functions by the constitution and assigned by the president. Is that where the problem is really? Did we err in passing it like that without clearing it?
I was part of the drafting of that constitution, and I think there was no erring, and I don't think there is a problem there. I think it is clear once you are a deputy. I think the constitution expects you to be a principal assistant to the president, and the president assigns you work, and I don't see a president who would fail to assign work. I don't think from the framers or the position of the framers of the constitution there was a problem. The problem is being created in the office itself, in the presidency itself, probably people not wanting to appreciate the position that the constitution gives them.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a problem there.
But as a person who took part in the drafting of it all, what happens if a president decides not to assign the deputy the duties?
The deputy decides to take the president.
Yeah, or the deputy decides to ignore what has been assigned. Did you look at that possibility?
I think the expectation was that we were not going to have that kind of friction.
Okay.
That for a presidency to run smoothly, there is a reason why the constitution put there a principal assistant called a deputy president, and he would be assigned work.
Yeah.
And then there is a reason why the constitution created a deputy president and called him a principal assistant of the president. So if this principal assistant wants to outsmart the principal himself, I think now that is a problem of the persons holding those posts.
Okay.
Yes.
Wanjiru, was there a mistake there in the drafting of Article 147 that did not explicitly give the roles of what a deputy president should do?
Well, I think if you look at the practice the world over, the deputy president deputizes the president on the assumption that ideologically they are together committed to the implementation of the party manifesto. That is the assumption. There are some things you can't legislate, and in fact that is one of them. You cannot legislate that once you ascend to a position, you must abide to the spirit and the law. You can maybe take somebody to court when they violate the law, but we are struggling with the spirit, and I think that's what we are talking about here. This is why we say we are also struggling with the issue of leadership and integrity. And you can see the big back and forth we are having between the IEBC, the EACC, and the court system. Because if somebody has been convicted, another person actually has even been, somebody's been charged or convicted or impeached and put themselves forward for a leadership position, and a party then proceeds to give them the ticket and they win the nomination. that is in violation of the spirit of the Constitution. The law was diluted, unfortunately, because we are working in a political context.
Yeah.
So, Trevor, when we are talking about our expectations as citizens, we have to acknowledge that our political system has been frustrating the aspirations of Kenyans for the interests of our political elite. And one of those is on leadership and integrity. The other is on accountability of public resources. The other one is on, will these parties implement the lofty proposals they have put in their manifestos? Because if you look at the manifestos, we have very good promises. Based looking at the economy, and there's differences between the manifestos, but there's an agreement that we must focus on agriculture, we must focus on the informal sector, we must create wealth, we must open up these value chains and democratize our economic system. These are great and lofty ideals, and I think it's a big win in that citizens have been heard. But in Kenya, our problem comes to at implementation stage. We have a political elite, we have a government administration that really roundly does not implement, subverts the law, avoids the law, evades the law. So that is the big question, and we want to hear what are the tangible proposals we have for the implementation of that. But also, I think we have to look at track record. Professor says that I'm hitting below the belt, but track record is how do you measure somebody when you know, when you're assessing somebody for an employment position. You look at their ideas, you look at their education, you also look at their track record. What were you doing before? And we're not saying we are witch hunting or moralizing. We're just saying, have you been consistent in terms of your ideological position, in terms of how you've conducted yourself in public?
Asaska, I'll come to you. I see you're itching to respond, but I want to show you what's going on right now. The registration is happening as we speak. The auditorium will be full to capacity, 600 strong. All of them invited guests. It's happening right now. If you're prior invited to this conversation, then you're being cleared. There's a tight security check at the corner. The chaperones are there waiting to pick each and every person who they are assigned to. You can see them lining up there. As soon as the candidates come in for debate 1, we will usher you straight to the auditorium when the conversation will begin at around 5:30. Justina Wamai for the Roots Party is expected here anytime from now. Ruth Mutua of Agano Party is also expected here anytime from now. The moderators will be Francis Gashuri and Zubeida Kome. As soon as that kicks off, we will take you there. But Saska, I was coming to you on this. Is it true what Wanjiru is saying, that it's the political system that frustrates the aspirations of Kenyans?
Culture.
Not
the system,
the political culture.
Trevor, I totally agree with Wanjiru here. And I don't know if politicians forget that Kenyans do read their manifestos. They do scrutinize it to ensure that it does reflect our needs and our aspirations as a country. I think there is that missing link. Because we have beautiful manifestos with lofty promises, as Wanjiru has alluded to. But the thing is, there is no clear-cut implementation roadmaps on how best all these promises and commitments will be executed at the end. And that's what we're missing in this country. It's 6 years since independence. And as much as we have beautiful policies in place, beautiful policy frameworks and regulations, we still fail at implementation. And it's time for us to ask ourselves, why is this so? Why does this keep happening?
Prof, do you agree with that? It's only about implementation rather than the policies we have. We have enough laws.
And this thing comes in my mind very clearly. I think when Laida was the deputy president or something like that, I remember him in Prime Minister. I remember him in a safari park, and he emphasized, he did actually say in my presentation in 3 words: implementation, implementation, implementation. And I hope we can do that. It's not just the manifesto. Even our strategies. I'll give you an example. Kigali Stock Exchange, actually brought from here. The CBC, there are people who have run away with it. And it's something perhaps, as we look at all this, I think it's also really to see them, all these things they're saying, what is the foundation? And one of the foundation is education. And I think Dr. Baraza has pointed about here. And I think it's very important to distinguish here the youth and workers.
Prof, hold the thought on the youth in just a bit, because one of the candidates has already arrived. That is Ruth Musheru Mutua of the Agano Party, and she's standing by there with Michelle Ngele. Let's find out how she's feeling just ahead of the debate. Michelle?
Right, Ruth Musheru, she is the first candidate to make it for the debate here, which is about to begin at 5:30 this afternoon. Trevor, good to see you today. You are the first of two candidates in the first debate. Are you ready?
I'm very ready, Kenyans. I am here to bring our agenda and to give you the view and what manifesto we have as a Gano party. We are ready and a privilege. Thank you for giving us this chance in the Media Council.
It is the third deputy presidential debate. What are your expectations within those 90 minutes?
To air the manifesto, to air what the Kenyans want to hear from us, what we are coming to bring in, yes, as the Badilisha team.
What do you expect from your debater, Justina Wamai?
She will come and bring forth what she has for the Kenyans. Right. We can debate from that point.
Thank you. That is Ruth Musheru. She is the first candidate to make it for the deputy presidential debate here at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Trevor, over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. And Prof, you're finishing your thoughts on the issue of
every time I'm coming, there's something,
there's something
coming in.
This is happening in real time.
I'm trying to bring a nexus, which I think Dr. Barasa brought very strongly. And Wak also brought it, the issue of employment. And where I come from, our young people are not really looking for employment. They are looking for opportunity to create employment. And that is important. And I link that, I step back and link that to CBC, the curriculum-based...
competency-based curriculum.
Competence-based curriculum. And what do I see the candidate linking that to what it translates to creating opportunities for young people to create employment. And there are people in this town. I have some Barotom survey around me, and I've mentioned him, Kiprono, Kitoni. I did happen to have teaching campus, and he said, by then I'm not going to be employed, but I'm going to create employment. That gentleman today has created employment. That's the kind of youth we are looking. But how do the deputy president, let's say they hold very high position, link that to what happens in the classroom? Right now, there are issues. When you look at the the curriculum we have adopted, very expensive. Curriculum drives everything, but we need to look at in that perspective. But the leadership, Wanjiru, I totally agree with you. I had an opportunity to work in government, and so there are certain terms you use. I remember one time talking to the public service. You don't say they have no skills. You say they have limited skills. So I could be talking about leadership, but really talking the issue of prudent utilization of the taxes we are paying. That's a big hole. Somebody has to look at that. Because today you go excise duty 16%. Left and right we are being taxed. And we Kenyans really we like to pay taxes, but we must see what the taxes are doing. So I've already had that sting. I think I wish the candidates who are coming, please go beyond your manifesto. We have led them, but tell the Kenyans, if I'm going to do this, how are we going to do it? That's what we'd expect from them. Let me bring in Nerima on this. Nerima, let's now talk about the cost of living and the economy. So according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, inflation has actually reached a 5-year high of 7.9%. Public debt is at 8.5 trillion. So Azimio is talking about agriculture, livestock farming, and blue economy that will then grow the agriculture sector by 30% of the GDP. Is that where the solution lies as a young person, considering that the average age of a farmer today is 70?
Yes. The average age of a farmer is old because, again...
that word, old.
Because he's young.
Mature.
That's a better word. Mature.
I don't know. There are some very wise young people. But I would say that it's also because of how we view agriculture. You know, even when we look at the vocational training institutes, a lot of times even when people apply or youth apply to go there, it's because it's the last resort. I wasn't able to go into a higher formal institution, or my parents can't afford it, so it's not a place where youth are saying, I am very passionate about doing this because I feel it's an opportunity for me. So we have to change the way we view agriculture and also see that agriculture can also produce opportunity for young people. Once youth see that transition, you will not even need to advertise for youth to enter agriculture. They will come on their own. And also, I agree on Prof's point in terms of youth looking for opportunity. But this country is not very conducive toward small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and young entrepreneurs. It is a struggle. The number of youth who even struggle with, say, the paperwork required and the costs of it, or the taxes to even have that business, it clamps your company before it can even continue to exist. And a lot of them do not last more than 3 years. After 3 years, they are done and dusted. And so if we could focus on, sure, blue economy, agriculture, because a lot of countries are looking internally in terms of specialization, but we also have to remember that this administration was focusing on housing. We've talked about the high cost of living, and one of them is housing. Youth right now, talking about land, owning land, buying a house, building a house, is not. This administration, they talked about housing. What happened to that? They managed to do some, but not as many as we anticipated beginning with their term 10 years ago. And number two, they talked about manufacturing. What happened to that? The president had a whole idea of having civil servants wearing Kenyan-owned, Kenyan-made fabric on particular days, which is Friday. Yes. But then what has happened with that? Even when we talk about implementation, the culture to want to support Kenyan-owned businesses is still far behind. And when you even see youth who are in agriculture, a lot of them complain about how there are certain policies that prop up. All of a sudden you need a license to start bee farming. All of a sudden you need a license to grow grass to be able to feed your cows. All of a sudden it's cheaper to grow onions in Tanzania, and I get my eggs from Uganda. And so we have to look at how can we improve the business environment for young people. It will be important because we're looking at integration. We haven't talked about the free trade, Africa Free Trade Area that is now in place, and youth being able to see opportunities in areas like Rwanda, Kigali, that we've talked about, and the fact that now that exchange will come into place, and it will also change the conversation on currency and how we trade and what we're trading.
And Dr. Baraza, in hindsight, what is missing when it comes to youth empowerment initiatives? Because some of them have been there, but they've collapsed on their faces. Or is it that the uptake has not been there? In your view, what is missing when it comes to youth empowerment?
I think what is missing is seriousness in following those programs through, in implementation. I know there are programs, there are funds, we hear of funds, youth funds, but I think implementation is not good. Nerima has touched on a very important issue. Youth try to do things, to farm, for example, or to rear chicken, for example, but they have no market. And the reason is we, the powerful, occupy that space. Okay, we deprive them of market. They cannot afford inputs because they are too expensive, and so that leaves the powerful, the rich, to do the business that the youth could engage in. So I think we strangle them along the road, along the way, and so we just don't enable them to succeed.
It's the enabling environment that's
the enabling environment is not there.
Asaska, we were speaking about the Azimio manifesto of agriculture, but Kenya Kwanza, on the other hand, also is pledging to invest 500 billion over the next 5 years in the smallholder agriculture and informal sector. Will the proposed agricultural initiatives guarantee food security to all Kenyans?
Thank you, Trevor. Definitely, as we all know, cultural sector plays a big role, is a key driver to Kenya's economy, and in 2021 alone, it contributed approximately 22.4% towards Kenya's GDP. Definitely, agriculture is a sector that enhances productivity, and thus cannot just be wished away. And in that case, as you've seen in the Kenya Kwanza financial commitment towards agriculture, they've set aside, I think, about 250 billion Kenya shillings within the financial year of 2023 to 2027. And Definitely, if it's implemented better, if the commitment is, if a firm commitment is in place, I think agriculture can contribute sustainable development agenda by increasing food security, alleviating poverty, and even employment creation. And we lack that in a big way. Because the sector alone, as you know, employs about 40% of our total population. So that's a huge chunk.
Wanjiru, is that the direction to take? Agriculture? Is that where we should focus on?
Well, yes, and you know, in our advocacy, looking at the crisis of public debt, that really goes, even before we entered into the COVID era, our economy was on a very weak footing because of imprudent choices, imprudent development choices. This large infrastructure development, eating up all the money, financed by costly debt, with corruption written in there, you know, conflict of interest, real mismanagement of the economy by the Jubilee administration. Because of that, we are in this economic crisis. But even then, if you listen to the Parliamentary Budget Office, they were looking at the economy and saying majority of people are employed in the agricultural sector, over 50% of Kenyans. This, even during COVID, it was the steadiest contributor to our GDP, because you're talking about the backbone of our economy. Yet our investments are in places where people aren't employed, where, you know, the large infrastructure employs very few people. So yes, it has to be agriculture, and this is why I'm saying that there are wins. Even before we start the debates, before we go to the election, there are wins. The parties have listened. They have prioritized agriculture, because both parties have prioritized agriculture. They have prioritized the informal sector. Both sides have recognized, you know, we've had numerous policies on the role of the informal sector, the importance of the informal sector, but governments keep ignoring them. They have prioritized manufacturing and are linking manufacturing to agro-processing, which is to the agricultural sector, to the informal sector. So they are, you know, committing to make those linkages. So the question becomes, that's why we were saying implementation. Can we trust the political parties, after they have wooed us with their promises, that when they sit in the seats of power, they will do what they have said, that they will listen to the citizens, they will be accountable to the citizens? Do they show in their manifesto the democratic space, civic space, the social accountability back to the citizens, the civic education to empower citizens to be very engaged, and answerability to the citizens? Do they show the public sector transformation to transform from the culture of impunity to the culture of compliance? Do they have the intergovernmental relations? We have seen the fights between county and national government under Jubilee that has really destroyed, almost destroyed the health sector. So are they speaking to the culture change that we need and the accountability that we need to implement these promises?
Asaska, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, Trevor, let's not forget that African countries, including Kenya, have international commitments in the agricultural sector. And if you remember, in the 2009 Maputo Declaration, most of these countries have committed to give 10% of the national budget towards agriculture. And for many, 20 years down the line, Kenya has not been able to hit that target. It's always around maybe 3.5%. So it's a shame that we are not really prioritizing an industry that enhances our productivity and drives our economy.
You have the issue of agriculture.
Yes, Prof, and that's right down your alley.
And it's like
that's an agricultural economy
of my life.
Yes.
I think there is a simple reason why we should concentrate on agriculture. You had lunch. You have supper. You have... It's there. We demand it. That's the bottom line. But I think the question you asked, and I think panelists, maybe something we need to look at. What do we need to do? Because we all know, and I'm always baffled. We know, but we're doing nothing about it. One, I think it's important to reflect back in terms of the skills we provide for the youth in the education system. And deliberately will be geared. How can a country like Ukraine, probably in one of our counties, be supplying gains to the world? And they have only 6 months in a year to those grains. We have 12 months. My mind goes back to a Bogo farm.
Yeah.
I hope some of you can. Bukula. Yeah? The one we have in Kiambu here called the Waruhu farm. The extension farmers. And I can tell you, Trevor,
Yeah.
if an extension person has come to the farm, the maize was very different from the other farm. These are the kind of things we actually want to bring back. I like her point.
Yeah.
It's actually almost, I don't know, it's almost treason opening something in this country. The way you go through. You give up.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we are looking for ease of doing business. I give the example. When we used to get our DL, driving license, we used to queue.
Yeah.
And to get it, you give 1,000. Right now, you can get through your phone. This is the kind of thing when you get kids into it. And the concept in a country, Trevor,
Yeah.
which cannot feed their people, is headed for disaster.
Yeah.
Look at US. Look at in the country. What they do, they make sure that there's enough for their people. I think that's something we need to reflect back. And we should, and I like you're using the free trade area in Africa, we should be the one exporting grains out there.
Yeah.
Not exporting to us. So I think it's something we must get that. I like the word she has used, mature.
Yeah.
We're exiting that in terms of even energy.
Okay.
How do we get back? And we also, we parents, I think we have a problem.
And Professor, you know, you're the one who said that every single time you're talking, something is always happening. Let me bring to your attention that the candidate Justina Wamai for the Roots Party has just arrived at the vicinity. She's ready to do the debate one, and Ken Mijungu is standing by with her in just a bit. Let's find out how she's feeling. And they have actually given a very interesting proposal, Prof, and I'll come to that in just a bit, on what they want to do to deal with the economy. They're talking about legalizing cannabis. But Ken, over to you first. How is she feeling?
And thank you, Trevor. And of course, Jacinta Wamai is here with us. She is the second candidate tonight for the first debate. How are you feeling now that you're here finally?
I'm excited. Yeah. Do you know I'm here to destigmatize our manifesto? So I'm energized and I'm psyched up.
You ready for this? What did you do ahead of the debate?
I prepared accordingly. You know, Kenyans are not bright, so I need to come off smart.
So we're looking forward to the debate and all the best. Asante sana. Asante. All right, back to you, Trevor.
Thank you, Ken. Prof, you're finishing your thoughts on this.
Finish.
Yeah.
I like this commercial break when it just comes to me. Yeah. So I think that's something, the point I was making here, we must do whatever it takes to ensure we are food secure.
Okay.
Had opportunity to talk to the military people. If we depend on our eggs from Uganda and there's war, they'll just stop the food. They don't even have to use a tank.
Yeah.
They'll come over.
Okay.
And I think that's something we need really to look at in terms of how do we make our country secure. Okay. And if there's something I had to do, one thing, agriculture.
Yeah.
It refers to manufacturing.
Yeah. But there's a twist. There's now a twist to this entire agriculture issue. We've talked about Kenya Kwanza manifesto and Azimio manifesto. The Roots Party is talking about legalizing cannabis. Is
that's
that
the point I was going to. I hear you, Trevor, but let me ask you, and I think we need to be more serious. And I think the presidential candidate is already visiting some farms in the US of where they plant. How much of GDP does that crop bring to those economies, even where they do it? Very little.
Yeah.
Then the second thing is, do we feed on that thing? There are farms here in Naivasha planting flowers. We never eat on those flowers. The most people Kenya will cash your call with their kids are in Naivasha.
Yeah.
So we also need to protect what people eat and what we sell for export. That balance is very important. And I will probably go towards grains. But the other thing is we need to change even the way we look at the grains. And I always give this example, and I think that Wako is here, I can give this example.
Yeah.
If we had unga in this cup, maize, they cannot even feed Wako. I know they don't eat these days. But if we had muchere, we can feed all of us here. Okay. We need to change the grain revolution. India, Southeast Asia, there are more people than we are. India is surpassing everybody in the world in the population. But you have never heard people have.
Okay.
Because they change.
All right.
And najua kwako unatoka hakuna chakula kwa hapana ugali.
But Dr. Baraza, let me bring in on this issue of the Roots Party manifesto. Speaking about legalizing cannabis, yani weed. First, what would it take for that to happen? And is it a viable resource?
I think before I come to cannabis, I just just want to chip in on what Prof has said about agriculture. We have strangled agriculture.
Okay.
I tried to farm. I got a big farm in Magarini. I tried to do pineapples. I tried to do sugarcane in Kwale. I tried to do mangoes. You hear of markets out there, but there is no support system for farmers in this country. I have now given up, but there is market out there. Now the problem with this country is we like importing everything and anything because of what we stand to gain out of that. I know of so many youth who in my endeavor to farm, I was meeting them in Kajiado. Young people, graduates, they are getting an acre here because they had, you can grow tomatoes, you can grow onions, but we strangled it. You go down Narok, young people on weekends going to Narok to get farms to try to grow wheat. So they are trying. It's not lack of will on the part of the youth. They are trying, but we strangle the agricultural sector because we want to import eggs, and of course who is importing the eggs? And what about that scheme in Galana Kulalu? I mean, it was hyped. We all waited. We expected we are going to feed ourselves with that maize there, and then it just went silent. What happened? And of course there is the issue of corruption. They are in this whole agricultural sector. Our youth can make a living and be rich within the agricultural sector. But we strangle it. Now coming to cannabis, okay, they say there are countries who have who are making incomes out of it. I think they need to convince us and to show us real data and statistics on how much they are getting and how we are going to protect our youth. I think the excited ones are not looking at it from the point of view of how much income. They are excited for other reasons. So we need to be convinced that it's not a dangerous thing that we are driving our youth into, and that actually wherever it has been legalized, wherever it has been made as part of the agricultural sector, that it is giving them the returns that really go into the economy, to improve the economy.
All right. And Wanjiru, is this an alternative revenue stream? Because it is in their manifesto, the Roots Party of Kenya manifesto.
It is in their manifesto, and if you'll allow me, I'll just add something on the excellent points raised on the agriculture sector, which is it's important to prioritize agriculture. It's important to recognize a lot of agriculture in Kenya is smallholder farmers. It's important to recognize that as you're bringing in technology, it has to be suitable to the existing framework that we have, so that you're not bringing in very sophisticated technology that pushes out the smallholder farmer. And so my question is, where is the farmer? Where is farmer's voice? What is the governance system within the cooperatives? How do we, reawaken the cooperatives and the SACCOs that support agriculture? So I think much as we are talking about the technical and the economic priorities, we must not forget the governance. We must not forget the social accountability, the citizen voice and role, because that's Article 1. And really the sustainability of development is that citizens are at the center of development. Development with the people, by the people, for the people. And government serves the citizen. On the cannabis issue, of course we want to maximize revenue streams. But we must remember that Kenya's problems are not just economic. We also have social problems. We have political problems. So one of the things I'm finding with the discussion we are having is that there's a strong emphasis on economic needs, which is really, really good. That's progress, because it means our democracies are maturing, but then we are pushing out some of the social and governance issues. They've kind of taken a backstage, and they have to go in tandem. On the issue of marijuana, there is a social side to it. Number one, right now, marijuana is illegal. Bangi is illegal in Kenya. What this means is there's a lot of young people who use the weed that are in prison because of owning and or using small amounts of weed.
Yeah.
There are recommendations to decriminalize bangi so that you can deal with that problem, because I think that creates inequality and that fails to deal with, there's a disconnect between the law and the social reality.
Yeah.
So if we are going to go into marijuana farming commercially, we then need to look at marijuana in terms of its medicinal contribution, but also as a drug, and ask ourselves, how well are we managing our drugs at present? How well are we managing alcohol? How well are we managing tobacco? What are the health impacts of these drugs? Because they are drugs much as they are legalized, and marijuana has different connotations because of the historical context, but the broader question is, what is the social support system? Kenya is quickly developing a drinking problem. Our young people are quickly developing drinking problems. This has been exacerbated by our kind of skewed taxation that we have on alcohol, that makes it cheaper for young people to take hard drinks than it is to drink maybe lower levels of alcohol. So we need to talk about social impacts of the decisions we make, economic decisions we make, so that we have a holistic conversation. So my view is we are looking at one aspect but missing the bigger picture.
Okay. Asaska, is it a realistic proposal?
I find the Roots Party's Trevor proposal quite controversial and at the same time interesting. Like, if you ask me personally, I would look at it differently a bit. Yes, there's a social problem around drugs in Kenya. I don't doubt that fact. But if you look just around East Africa, if you look at Rwanda and Uganda, they've legalized the medicinal use of cannabis. And they're making money of it. They're exporting it just like tea or coffee. And they have investors who have come in and they're making money out of it, and that way they're having an alternative revenue stream that is helping develop the country. So I'm not opposed to maybe looking at it differently and having tough guidelines surrounding the production of cannabis. I think it's something maybe we can look at, because currently we have 10 countries.
We don't
in
have
Africa.
enough regulations to deal with the drugs we have currently. So if we add another one, wouldn't
that's
that be
definitely an issue that needs to be addressed fast. And if you remember the late MP of Kibra, he brought the Cannabis Control Bill of 2018. And he had good proposals in there, because it can be used for medicinal value. And if we restrict it, not for recreational purpose, maybe we'll be able to have very strong guidelines that can ensure that the drug cannot be misused.
Okay. Nerima? I'm not coming to you last week.
Now, on that one, I like that you've come to me next, because I feel I hold the same opinion as Asaska. It's about looking at the differences. It's interesting. It really is. We're thinking outside the box, because we have to. We're talking about a population that is majority youth, and not only is it now, it will be for decades to come. And we're talking about a global economy and a global citizen population that will continue to grow. Our health continues to improve, the standards continue to improve. So how are we managing? So things that are going to be key is access to resources, climate change, the environment, and managing pollution as we continue to increase and decrease the number of vehicles or the kind of transport and carbon monoxide going to the environment. So for me, looking at the regulations, if it's for medicinal use, it's very, very helpful for many people who are going through all sorts of long-term illnesses. It is even sometimes prescribed, and it's necessary for them to be able to survive. But then I think what a lot of people are worried about is the misuse of that. And it's the same with all the drugs that we're talking about, like Wanjiru has mentioned.
So Prof, jump in.
I think I'll pick from what you said, and it's economics. If you legalize something, it loses that value it had. And it doesn't become like a gold, the black gold. But I think that what is important, and hearing that it has, and when you're right, it has the value in terms of medicinal. I think what we are balancing here is what do we do for export and what we do also for food security. So we need to balance that. So we can sell, but not at the expense. I think the first step is to ensure every Kenyan has enough food. That's the first thing. We can still plant flowers. We can plant tea. Tea plays two parts. It plays as an export, but also consume. But it's not food really.
Okay.
I cannot have tea and I say I've had lunch.
Okay.
So we think to be careful in that. The contribution to the economy is questionable, and I hope they have done their math. I've just looked at it, and we know economy. It's actually saying we are getting so much from it. But the most important thing is medicinal, because it's medicinal. It helps us now to be productive in other sectors.
Yeah, Dr. Baraza, I know you still want to be convinced in terms of how much money it brings to the economies that have legalized it. But legally speaking, if that was to happen and make cannabis legal, what impact would it have on the previous rulings on people who are incarcerated as we speak for having had some marijuana on them? What impact would that create in the judiciary where you've served before?
If they legalize marijuana now, what it will have on the people in the cells? Well, I guess, is the law retroactive?
No.
I think the law doesn't apply retroactively, but I think the issue here is not the legalization. I think good points have been raised around Wajakoya's or that manifesto about marijuana.
Yes.
I think if it is properly managed, and personally I want to be convinced that it is of an economic value.
Yeah.
If it is, then I think a law can be passed, an appropriate law can be passed. We put in place mechanisms to protect the youth from abuse, and then I think that will be okay. But I need to be convinced that there is some useful. It is a useful venture in terms of agriculture.
All right. Let her finish. I'll come to you. Go ahead.
As to and then that will take care of the abuse which has caused the fellows in the cells to be in the cells.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Asaska, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, I'd like to add on what Ms. Barasa has mentioned. That yes, definitely there's a social problem. We all agree. And if you look at the 10 countries, I would like to clarify. The 10 countries in Africa that have legalized cannabis, they've only legalized for medicinal use except South Africa. South Africa has legalized both for medicinal use as well as recreational use. So yes, there's a fear around the social problem that the cannabis will bring about. But I also want us to look outside the box, as Nerima has mentioned, that it's estimated that in Africa alone, cannabis has a market is worth about $7 billion by 2023. So it's a market that maybe we could try and figure out how best we can get into for the benefit of our development agenda in the country.
Okay. Wanjiru?
Yeah, so I was going to just be clear that I'm not advocating that it don't be legalized. I think I'm actually a proponent of, if you look at the social reality, cannabis is being used, it's being used by youth, that's why they're winding up in jail. So first of all, it shouldn't have been criminalized, because people shouldn't be in jail because of smoking cannabis. That is quite regressive, and so that's a situation. But if I think the case that what Jacoya is making is, let us legalize cannabis, and I say yes, let us legalize it for medicinal, also for social, because it's in use, and regulate it in the same manner that we would regulate other substances. But recognize that right now our regulation of other substances is not doing so well. That there is a risk that we go in and legalize and we create a culture that is going to destroy our youth. And it's not just youth who have problems with substances, people our age, because we tend to moralize the use of substances instead of looking at maybe the practical. Maybe we don't deal with our mental health issues so well, maybe our social structures. So this is why I'm saying we need a proper policy framework that looks at the issue holistically, not just from an economic point of view, and definitely not from a moral point of view.
Okay, let's move away from the economy and now talk about the war on corruption. And Dr. Baraza, I'll start with you on this. You've been at the helm of the judiciary. What is really hindering the war on corruption?
The war on corruption is being hindered by corruption.
corruption itself.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Because we have institutions to fight corruption. We have the law to fight corruption. We have constitutional provisions, although we've watered them down, as Wanjiru says. So what is the problem?
Yeah.
And so we hear of cases of corruption, and they are major, and there are many, they are on a daily basis. They come to the courts, and probably you hear about them day one, and then that's the end of it. We just never hear of people getting convicted for corruption. So I don't know what happens, but I want to imagine that there is corruption in the fight against corruption.
People have blamed that on the judiciary for not explaining.
Well, I'm saying I'm not exonerating the judiciary from the corruption issue at all. Because there are things you just can't explain. Or in other institutions.
When you say the things you can't explain, what do you mean?
You arrest people. And by the time you go to arrest a person, you must really have a reason. So what happens beyond the arrest? All right? What happens beyond the being charged in court? I think there is so much which happens in that chain of dealing with corruption. And my argument is that there is corruption, which is fighting to sustain corruption.
What then would be the solution?
Dealing with it head on. There's no two ways about it.
The Roots Party is suggesting bringing back the death penalty.
You deal with it head on. And what am I talking about head on? We know some countries you mess up and you are in. That's it. And look, this terrorism. We, as African culture, we respect leadership a lot. Because that's how we've grown up, to respect leadership. I'll give you an example. Magufuli, and God bless his soul. Magufuli convinced Tanzania there was no COVID. Majimaji, Vilani. They believed him. We knew there was. But that trust of leadership. So today that leadership tells us Kenyans, I don't want this nonsense. Wako you show up, you're in. When they set it up, stay there until we sort it out.
But right now she has an issue.
Somebody's even going that we cannot arrest her. Fine. You see the narrative you're going. You are guilty unless proved
innocent until proven guilty.
We prove you when you're inside there.
But Dr. Baraza, the reason I'm coming to
because
you this is
the animal you're dealing with
firsthand.
The animal you're dealing with, and let's be a bit serious, and I think we are. The animal we are dealing with, it's what is making our food expensive today. The animal we are dealing with is the one which is making very unsafe to go certain areas.
Let me bring back Baraza before I come to the rest of my panelists. How can it be dealt with, having dealt with this firsthand?
I think the issue of integrity is what is standing in the way on the fight against corruption. It's corruption. It is lack of integrity. And we should deal with it seriously. Look at the people that we have in our institutions. Are they corruptible? From where I sit, I think they are corrupt people.
But Prof, we have enough
who are not able to deal with corruption. And that is how those cases go in such a zigzag manner that you never get to get the outcome there.
Look at even the word the president. He said last week. Huyu atafunga nyinyi. We are looking for people tutafungwa. Why should a youngster who is perhaps my grandson is on the road with a 33 million car? What the hell have you got the car from? Surely, even if my father is built whatever, is that a priority? Yeah. And I think she's right. It's in our bones. And you know, is something in your bones, you have to go through the cancer process.
Yeah.
You have to go through that process. At times we cut it off.
Okay. All right.
So here,
yes.
Sorry, let me just interject. We watered down chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Yeah.
We watered it down because right now I don't understand how people who are facing charges of corruption are the ones seeking the leadership position. How are they ever going to fight corruption? Our devolution, the gem of our Constitution, what is killing devolution is corruption.
Yeah.
And they are the same fellows who are benefiting from corruption in those counties.
Yeah.
And they are the same ones running for positions of leadership. How are they ever going to fight corruption?
Yeah.
I think their main aim is to come and preserve themselves. It is unfortunate we watered down chapter 6, and so we are going to go in circles on this issue of corruption.
Okay, Wanjiru, I'll come to you and talk about this, but let's cross over now to Busara Naman, who's standing by. This time it's not you, bro. Busara Naman is standing by with the security situation at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, where this multimedia broadcast is coming to you live. Busara?
Na mtazamaji, moja kwa moja tuangazie swala zima la usalama katika chuo hiki ambapo mdahalo unafanyika, na kwa mengi zaidi tunaungana na mkuu wa kitengo cha usalama. Moja kwa moja ningependa ukaribie na uanze kwa kujitambulisha alafu tuendelee.
Kwa majina naitwa Benjamin Mwanzi, Sub County Police Commander Lang'ata.
Na ningependa utueleze, je, ni mikakati gani ambayo mmeweka kuhakikisha kwamba tuko salama, na je tusiwe na wasiwasi?
Nataka kuhakikisha wa Kenya na watu wote ambao wamefika pande hii na kwamba usalama uko sawa sawa. We have made the necessary arrangements. Tumekuwa hapa since the governor's debate, and since then we have been scaling up security. Kwa saizi security iko sawa sawa, na nahakikisha wananchi ya kwamba wasiwe na wasiwasi yote. Tumeweka usalama ya kutosha.
Naam, basi tayari ameshatueleza kwamba kila kitu kiko shwari, inamaanisha kwamba tusiwe na wasiwasi. Lakini cha mno, je, bado mnaangazia ni akina nani wanaingia? Ni waalikwa tu ama mnaruhusu mtu yoyote?
Si mtu yote anakubaliwa, ni wale wamealikwa. Iko vetting kwa gates, iko vetting, iko several vetting areas kabla hujafika mahali ya debate. So ni wale wamealikwa peke yake, wako na cards, tuna verify kabla hawajaingia. So watu wasikuje isipokuwa wale wamealikwa, na tunaomba wale wamealikwa nao wakuje, na wale watu walitupea wakasema hao ndio wataandamana nao, wasiongeze watu wengine zaidi kwa sababu ya the logistics ambazo tumeweka huko ndani.
Naam. Bila shaka mtazamaji, huyo ni Benjamin Mwanzi, ni OCPD wa Lang'ata, ambaye anatujuza mengi kuhusiana na shughuli nzima ya usalama katika eneo hili, na kama alivyosema kila kitu kiko shwari. Kwa hivyo mtazamaji, kama uko nyumbani endelea kutazama kwenye runinga yako, kama uko na radio sikiliza, kama uko na bundles basi angalia mtandaoni mtazamaji, uweze kujionea yote yanayojiri katika mdahalo wa leo wa wagombea wenza. Kufikia hapo narudisha upande mwingine wa studio kwako Trevor.
Asante sana Busara Naman, kila kitu kiko shwari. Kiswahili. Wanjiru, let me bring you back into this. You've been dealing with this issue of corruption for the longest time now. What are the best options of dealing with it?
Great, yes. As an institution, we deal with social accountability, which is really strengthening citizen voice for accountability. Corruption proper, you're looking at abuse of office and you know, the penalties and the kind of remedies you have on that. And how do we deal with the problem of corruption? First of all is to recognize that, as Prof has said, as Daktari has said, it's become a part of our culture. In 2015, I think it was, the Aga Khan University published a study on youth perceptions and expectations, and youth said it doesn't matter how you make your money, as long as you make your money, and corruption's not a big deal. So if you're going to talk about prudent use of public resources to youth, it's not going to resonate, because the interest is to make money by any means. We become very consumerist. Our value system is about consumption, and it's about, you know, acquiring money so that I can consume, like Prof is saying, enjoy a big car, the soft life. So one, we need to deal with the culture. The other thing, of course, it's about leadership, and it is about Chapter 6. And so we are looking for a political party that is serious about Chapter 6, that's making some good, strong recommendations, and have a track record on delivery. The problem we are having, and it's a crisis that's facing us, is we are having more and more leaders who have violated public office, who are involved in drug cartels or money laundering cartels, rapes and violations, and are actually in court. You know, sometimes it's rumors, sometimes they're even in court, and they're able to get into public office. And as Dr. has said, what will they do once in office? They will water down the law. So we are caught in a cycle.
So it's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle, but we must give ourselves some opportunity for hope. Number one, as we go to vote, Kenyans must refuse to vote for leaders who are implicated in corruption or other forms of abuse of public office, so socially. Number two, we need to align with leaders who have expressed their interest and have a track record in fighting corruption, and then also in our own...
Wanjiru, hold that thought in just a bit. There's an important process that's coming through. This time it's not Prof again, it's you interruptions coming through. Let's go so
we are equal.
Now, so at least now you're even. Nimrod Tabu is standing by with the balloting process. It's an important process, and he'll explain why. Nimrod?
Na asante sana Trevor Mbija kutoka studio nyingine. Hapa tuko katika sehemu moja muhimu, na kama unavyoona ninao wagombea wenza wawili ambao tayari washafika tayari kwa mdahalo wa leo. Bi Justina Wamae hapa na Bi Ruth Mutua tayari kuanzisha kipenga chetu cha mdahalo wa leo. Lakini kazi iliyoko hapa ni kazi fupi ndogo ya moja kwa moja kuweza kumchagua yule atakayeingia jukwani wa kwanza, yule atakayerushiwa maswali ya kwanza na kujieleza wa kwanza. Kwa hivyo Bi Ruth na Bi Justina, ningewaomba tu kwa wepesi tu kila mmoja aweze kuchukua karatasi yake ambayo ni kura, halafu moja kwa moja tuweze kuzionyesha kwenye mpiga picha. Moja kwa moja mwaweza kufanya hivyo, maana nishawapa kibali. Ameanza Bi Justina, akafuatia Bi Ruth. Moja kwa moja kuweza kufungua tuweze kujua. Haya basi, ni kama unavyoona upande wangu wa kushoto, nambari wa kwanza atakaye anaingia jukwani si mwingine ila Bi Justina, wa pili atafuatia ni Bi Ruth. Na moja kwa moja basi niwaeleze kwa kifupi tu, kwa kuwa yule anaingia kwanza anaingia sehemu ya kushoto kuangalia wale wageni walioko mbele yetu. Kwa hivyo ni shughuli tu ya moja kwa moja kuingia na kuweza kuanza kusubiri mdahalo kuweza kuanza rasmi. Asanteni sana na nawatakia kila laheri. Asante.
Alright, asante sana Nimrod Tabu. That's Nimrod Tabu during the balloting process. Now that's an important process because now we know Justina Wamae of the Roots Party is taken number 1 and Ruth Mutua is number 2. What that means is Justina will be the first one to make her opening remarks and also the first one to make her closing remarks. That's the reason why the balloting process is important, so that we align on who goes first, right? Yeah, you're finishing your thoughts on recommendations of dealing with corruption.
How do you deal with this monster of corruption? Number one is implement the law, because there are provisions. We need transparency. We need to know who the beneficial owners of public-sponsored projects are when you have private sector working with governments, because what we are having is government officials enriching themselves through public schemes. So beneficial ownership, we need transparency, disclosure of the contracts. We are in court over the SGR. There is also a case on the Nairobi Expressway and many other. So we need to enforce the law. We also need to revisit our civic education, because